My Hero Academia chapter 424 has just leaked, and I just want to make it very clear that if you are not here for manga spoilers, please leave because I have a couple of thoughts about not only my reactions to it, but other people's reactions. Well, I think most people's reactions to Act 3 of My Hero Academia has been very hit or miss for the most part. I feel like this is where like a lot of people are having their, fallouts from the franchise. I've personally been enjoying it despite most of the hiccups involved. And I was mostly there until the last chapter. Well, last couple of chapters, to be honest. After what, in my opinion, was probably some of the best character work that Shigaraki has ever gotten. Seriously, him being in the driver's seat after basically playing backseat to All for One for about a year or two was just so much fun to see. I really dislike the fact that All for One had to come back one final time. This isn't to say that it wasn't expected. The All for One vestige pretty much was stated to still be within Shigaraki. Plus, also, All for One as a child did state that he had more tricks up his sleeve just in case. It still rubs me the wrong way though, and because of the fact that I feel like it takes away a lot from Shigaraki, and I felt like they went a bit too hard into the whole, ha ha ha, I planned for this. Well, of course, I'm not trying to deny the fact that Shigaraki is very much a victim at the end of the day due to All for One. My personal thing is the fact that pretty much as soon as this happens, Shigaraki kind of just plays completely to the backseat till the very end, where he only gets like a little bit of scenes with Deku before just completely vanishing. And I feel like we could have had like a lot more time to at least space things out, or in my opinion, rewrite things just a little bit differently. Literally keep this fantastic scene pretty much all the same. Still have All for One's Vestas show up, but at least for me personally, what I predicted, or at least what I was hypothesizing, was that Shigaraki would be able, as Tenko would be able to essentially like try and decay the rest of the All for One vestige, completely eradicating it, while in the real world, Shigaraki still comes out like this, but his body has essentially and the Shigaraki personality has gone through so much at this point that decay has become a non-issue. And on top of that, too, you can still have Deku lose his arms, get them back, get some help, and then be the one to finally do that final punch. Through it, you could possibly have it so the Shigaraki personality is at least destroyed, possibly, and then you have, or at least one last conversation with the Vestige world, and then Tenko Shimura even comes back fully formed. Whether or not you want to have this be in the sense that like Tenko essentially is able to regenerate because his body has always been capable of regenerating and he just becomes a child, and then also gifts Deku back one for all so that way he's safe for the most part, thus reducing most of his quirk factors also is another thing entirely. I've seen a lot of takes imply that Deku kind of went out of his way to just kill Shigaraki out front, and also that, oh my god, Horikoshi ruined the entire series by having the villains like all die. And while I think there is very much a discussion that could be had about the decision to have a large portion of the villains who are supposed to be, who are most in need of saving, killed or at least die, I really hate as though this implies that the villains weren't being villains. Shiggy and the League are all very much victims of the hero society that was created through both All Might and just quirks in general. But let's not forget that they still were a massive threat and they continuously escalated the entirety of the war arc as it went on. Outside of Shigaraki's statement of just, I'm going to blow up the entire country essentially in a week, Dabi would have also destroyed everything within a 5 kilometer radius and was a living nuke that almost could not be stopped. It's honestly amazing that he's even speaking coherent sentences as of now. And Toga, if she were successful in her plea, she would have essentially killed off most of the heroes and probably would have won the war, to be honest. I mean, Toga low-key carried the villains, but that's another discussion for another day. Even if they had all magically survived and wanted to turn over a new leaf, realistically, almost the entire league probably would have spent their entire lives in jail for being a part of what's essentially a domestic terrorist group that nearly destroyed the entirety of the country. I feel like people often forget the villains, while being very sympathetic, they're also victimizers as well. And I feel like people also tend to forget about lines like this. Maybe if I, just maybe, if I had known this feeling sooner, then despite how badly I wanted to drain their blood, I would have yearned to give my blood away too. Everyone else is watching me, so this is what it's like. If it was so simple a thing, then why not sooner? I think that Horikoshi was trying to craft that, well, yes, obviously they are villains and obviously they must be put under the law. I think it also implies that it's the entire point is that, yeah, it's supposed to suck. It's supposed to be tragic that these characters were driven so far to the point where they felt like this was the only way to actually make change or to be noticed or even to have like a semblance of love and care put on them. Toga should have lived a normal life. Dabi deserved a loving parent. Shigaraki deserved to just grow up in a normal society and actually get a chance to be a hero. But the tragedy is they never got that. So it's on to the next generation, or at the very least, it's on to the heroes to actually try and take what they learned from this all experience and just try. Pretty much as soon as Shigaraki got his quirks back and control over his body, the fight between Deku and Shigaraki became very much a stalemate, with Deku being completely on the defensive. Hence why he had to give up One for All. It was the only thing that he could do to at least disable Shigaraki enough and to talk with him and address the point of their trauma. Without that, Deku also wouldn't have understood Shigaraki a lot better. They both wouldn't. Literally, it was mainly All for One overtaxing Shigaraki's body. That was what killed Shigaraki, not Deku. He tried everything that he could. If anything, it also, ironically too, the fight between Deku and All for One's finally also showed off that Hero Society is changing for the better. We saw that with how the civilians were inspired by Deku's example and wanted to help him instead of the old days with All Might where people just kind of rooted from the sidelines. We see that essentially in how the heroes also tried to de-escalate the conflict almost the entire fight through. When you really look at the war in general, the fight probably would have been like a lot cleaner and Deku would have had better chances to reach out for Shigaraki if it weren't for the fact that like Toga basically just like upended him at the last like first second of the war. I'm just saying that I feel like that there's a lot more nuances here that I feel like people are forgetting because they're only using like one or two chapters over the 423 that are out right now. Well, I'm definitely disappointed at how Shigaraki went out since he's one of my favorite villains as of recent memory. I also would like to kind of hold on and hold off until we see what actually happens in the future. If Hero Society remains the exact same that it was in the first chapter after all of this, then yeah, I'll basically like condemn Hori too. I'll slander my goat. But until then, I'm just gonna kind of have to wait and see. At the end of the day, though, I just kind of want an honest conversation here. I want basically people to have debates about it. I don't want to like people just be obtuse both in over defending this and also underselling it. Either way, I would love to hear your thoughts on the recent chapter, and please let me know if you want more discussions like this. Have a nice rest of the day, and I'm personally going to be sticking to the series till the end.